next up on the series of how to position as support on a map, we have the map of the fancy new rework, Frozen Guard. So, also on this map they removed, there used to be a way to tell which side was which, but now you kind of just have to look at the capture point and know, because like going out this door right here is always faster than going out the other one, so. Fun fact, also, I know it hasn't been super long since this map came out, but there is a jump you can do, similar to the Serpent one. Okay, well you can't make it up to that place exactly, but if you wall jump, you can make it higher up the stairs, and that's a bit faster, so. I haven't practiced it too much, because again, the map's really new. Oh, scuffed it there. It's a bit hard to do out of spawn, but it's a bit faster. Alright, so let's talk about the mid fight. So typically on this map, teams have two options, as either to play pillars over here, or statues as the game calls it, we're going to call it pillars, or you can play wall, which is this area over here. So if your team plays wall, right, you're usually going to have one DPS around main, one tank on point, and then a DPS, a support, and an off tank pushing out this area. So if that happens, you just want to follow your off tank, right? Because if you do manage to get set up in this sort of area, this is a really good spot for you right here. So looking for that is good. You can jump up here, but don't do that. It's not actually very useful. You can jump up here, again, not very useful. But generally, yeah, you want to play back here, play the corners. If your team manages to push up, you can push up as well. That's fine, right? Yeah, most of the time it's going to be like somewhere behind these boxes. I mean, so yeah, like it's pretty straightforward, right? On the mid. If your team decides to take pillars, which is on this side, then you're probably going to start somewhere around here, right? And you can watch this wall and like play in here. But then you don't want to stay here, right? If you stay in this general area, like all of this, this is not safe, because if you do get flanked, you have nowhere to back up to, right? If you get shot from wall and you're playing here, then like where do you actually back up to? Like you can back around to this little building right here, right? Right here. But I mean, again, that's not great. So usually your team will try to make some space for you up here, and you want to follow them. You can play around this corner, you can play inside the tunnels if you want, but if you do play here, it does mean that you have somewhere to actually back up to. So like you playing around these pillars is always really good, because it lets you stall for time and let your team help you. So, but yeah, honestly, biggest thing is just, I know like 90% of the time sports try to play around, play like these corners, and that's really not great. So try to avoid that, right? Because like it's not safe. You will get you'll get poked. You'll have nowhere to back up to. It's just not a great time. You stand on these? Oh. Wait, what? Huh. I didn't actually know that. But yeah, so don't go mid, because you're gonna get poked out. You're gonna have nowhere to back up to. It's gonna be a really bad time. Try to stay near the wall if it's safe, or try to play around pillars over here. The other option, I mean, if your team has control, like so the reason that this area isn't safe, right, is because if the other team takes control of wall, then you have nowhere to back up to. But if your team does have control of wall, and for some reason you still want to play around mid, that's like the one situation where you could, I think. Just because then you do have somewhere to back up to, which is going to be like this area right here. You can play around here, and that's okay. Also, whenever you hear that game ready noise, it's just the Mave bot. So that's the one situation where it'd probably be okay. And that's really it. So stay on wall, play here if you can, right? It's safe. If it's safe, again, follow your DPS. I try to play around pillars. For the defense, the chokes on this map are fairly obvious. It's like there's this big wall, right? And then there's your spawn. So on this first choke, the important area is going to be mines right here. This area is called mines. and it dominates the push, right? If you have control of mines, you have control of this area, which means you can't really contest the cart from here until it gets to way out in the open, and if you're contesting the cart in the open, you're just going to die. So holding mines lets people hold the cart at a safe spot. So your team's going to be holding mines. Usually that means you're going to be playing right here. It has really good LOS on everywhere. If you have like a sniper playing back there, you can see them. You have this wall to play around with. You can even drop down if you really need to. You can help out with a fight in mines. You can help out with the fight in main. Usually there's not too big of a fight happening in cabin over there, so I'm assuming these calls are right. By the way, I haven't played this map in a long time, or at least in scrims I haven't played this map in a long time, or in ranked, I guess. So open my call, it's alright, but usually it's going to be this position. The reason you don't want to be main is again because you get ran at pretty easily, right? Like if their main tank just walks around the corner, then you take a lot of damage. You have to like use cooldowns. You have to back up. Then you're out here. Then like it's a bit more exposed. So playing here, just a bit more safe. You can even back up to this corner if you really want to, but that's really it. Like you don't really have that many other options unless your team's making like a really strong push somewhere, in which case yes, following your team takes precedent. But alright, so to understand like how this choke works, or how to position on this choke, let's talk about how the choke actually works. So this choke is the I don't know if it's the hardest to break in the game, but it is one of the hardest to break. And the reason for that is, I mean, it's just DPS free fire. Oh, DPS that are just free firing, and they have like they're completely uncontested from up here. They choose their engagements. They have really good angles on everything. It's insanely strong. So how do you break this? Well, if you can try to, like, if you have something like a dive comp, you have like a ruckus or something that can get to high ground, you can try to contest them. But the way that most team comps are going to work is they're going to try to push through this tunnel right here. So, you know, it's going to look like they're going to start over in cabin, lodge, whatever, same difference. Start over here, they're going to like make their way through cover, try to LOS the DPS as much as possible. And I'm going to try to get their DPS inside the base. And that'll make, make the DPS turn. It's a bit more of a even engagement. They have this somewhat safe area to play with. So that's usually how this works, right? It's going to be like a offlane trying to rush through the tunnel there. So knowing that, as a support, you have a few options. Your first is to play like this corner up here, right? And this is, or just play like where your DPS play. This is fine if the other team doesn't have like any poke, but again, you're a support. You're probably going to lose a poke fight. You're going to get poked out. So I wouldn't really go for this. It's good at the start of the fight to get ult charge, but then I wouldn't stick with it otherwise. If they have a really, if the other team is like a really scary comp, you can play your spawn door. Just play inside here. This is never a bad option. Just be aware that you can get shot if you do peek out from main. So that's a fun angle. Your other option is going to be to play back here. This is if you feel a bit more safe. Maybe they don't have too many things that are super divey. Maybe they're running like double backline. And what this angle does, it lets you try to, like, again, if you have DPS posted up on the high ground, there's no way they're getting, like, they're winning that fight unless your team either makes like a really big mistake, right, and someone just like dashes off the high ground and dies, or I mean, I don't even know, unless they like get unlucky headshot, or I don't know. But so the way they're going to try to break it, right, is through this fight right here. And what this position lets you do is lets you contribute to the fight down there really well, right? If you're a Fury or something, you have really good angles, or if you're a Domba even, like, you can spam that out. And that's pretty much your options. I'd play really safe on this part of the map because getting picked is pretty much the only way to lose it. Like, it's, if you play this right, it is like an unlosable defense. You can contest from here if you absolutely need to, and then like try to dash back into spawn or something. But generally, yes. Just start up here, get some poke. Play here if you really need to. Otherwise, you're gonna be in front of your spawn door or back here. You can play back here too, but I find this doesn't have as good LOS as the right corner, so that's up to you. Yeah, that's pretty much the defense, right? So you're gonna be pulling here for the first choke, and then near your gates on the second for the push. So the push is a bit similar, right? So you're just gonna be. Oh, one more thing on defense, actually, I forgot. So something that people like to do is they like to fight when the cart is like right here. And this is obviously like between chokes, right? There's one there and one there. So fighting here isn't what your team wants to do. So you could follow your team and like play here or here, but this is out in the open. Like it's vulnerable. Like if you there's nowhere to back up, it's kind of spooky. It's not like the worst positions. Like it's better than just sitting in main. But it's not great, right? It's a lot less safe than high grounds, playing around the boxes and all that stuff. So if you see your team fighting here, just play the high ground. Chances are they will get, like, because they're fighting out in the open, your team will get low and they'll slowly start to back up, and the fight will happen right here anyways. So like when you notice your team fighting in between chokes, play the next one, I guess. You don't want to hold the first choke, right? Because that'd be ahead of them, and you don't want to hold that not at a choke. So hold the one behind them. I think that's it for the defense. For the offense. So again, so how do you break the first choke? There's two ways. Either you try to take control of mines, right? So that your DPS can, take control of this tunnel, right? And burn whoever is trying to stop the point from moving. Or if you don't brawl as well, maybe you poke better, then you can try to take control of cabin. Try to take this angle, and again, it's the same sort of idea, right? You're trying to shoot the people who are contesting the point. Or even take this door and try to contest the DPS a little bit. So your team's gonna make one of those plays, and you're gonna follow them. Even if your team is like passive, you still want to follow the offlane, because when you're on the offense, you need to make aggressive plays to actually push it in, right? You can't just sit there and take a poke fight and hope something happens, because the other team will have better positions than you. They're on the defense. So like the push is defender favored, advantaged, right? Your team is going to have to make a play. And if your team's trying to make a play, then you follow your offline. So if your team goes mines, you follow them. If your team goes cabin, you follow them. Once you break this choke, and if your team doesn't go to either of them, then yeah, playing main is fine. But like, your team should ideally push one of the sides. But don't just go, oh, I'm gonna solo go mines because that's where we should be going. No, if your team is going somewhere, then follow them. So once you do break this choke, you can't push, right? Like this, you're just gonna die to whatever DPS they have up there. So usually your tanks will take the cart, and if they don't, then please ask them kindly to take cart. And then what you want to do, you can push a little bit, right? You can sort of like go from cover to cover and all that fun stuff. But generally, you're going to be following this sort of right side, because, like, remember how we break the second choke, right? We try to push through the tunnel into their base. And your team's making an aggressive play. You follow your team making the aggressive play. So that's going to look like, again, you can't really stay out in the open. You're a support. You're just going to die to their DPS. So it's going to look like you going from here to this cover to following your team when they try to make the push through here. If your team doesn't try to make a push through there, then it's kind of rough. Then you just try to use cover as much as possible and try to support the people who you do notice are making aggressive plays. Like if you're, if you notice that your flank is taking a fight up there. Wait, you used to be able to get back up here, didn't you? Yeah, you used to be able to climb up there. Oh, that's a big change, I think. Yeah, they're like boxes here. I was gonna say like walk up to here and heal them and play these boxes, but I guess they removed that. So I guess you can play like here and try to support them, but again, use cover. I wouldn't go mines because if you ever end up in this sort of LOS, it is very easy to just get poked out and then you don't really do anything. You have to heal up. You can play. I mean, again, playing here isn't the worst, but generally your team wants to try to force their way into the base like this, and you follow them. Don't go past the doorway. These doorways are scary, but yeah, try to follow your team into making the aggressive play. And I think that's it. Aside from some map bugs with this map currently that hopefully should be fixed. Not sure exactly where it is. There it is. Yeah. You can actually shoot from down from this. You notice the snowflakes are... You can drop down. Don't abuse bugs. Some are up there, I forget where, but... Anyhow, to summarize. Avoid, on the mid-fight, avoid main. It's spooky, nowhere to back up to. You get poked out easily. If your team goes wall, follow your team on wall, play around the boxes. If your team goes pillars, play around the pillars, play around the corners, try to follow your team. On the defense, mines is the most important part of this map. So you play around mines, you play right here. On the last choke, you can play up here, but then you want to fall back to either your spawn door or to this area right here. On the push, you follow where your team goes. If your team pushes mines, follow your team through mines. If your team goes cabin, follow your team through cabin. If they don't do either, that sucks. Try to use cover as best you can, right? And they're scattered about. Just, yeah, you're gonna spend a lot of time doing this. And then in the last choke, again, either try to use cover if your team isn't making too much space for you, and if they are making space, follow them and try to break the base by pushing through the tunnel right here. And that just about sums it up. That's all. This map is might go through some more changes because right now it's kind of buggy. Apparently there's some like invisible walls and there's some statues that you shouldn't be able to stand on top of, and you still can't fly over that. So, you know. So this might go through some changes, but overall should be good for now, and see you guys later.